What's up gamers, Dreamcastguy here, talking today about the PlayStation 5 because as crazy as it is to actually consider this, it has already been an entire year since the PS5 came out. You may not realize it because this system is just so incredibly rare to track down, but it has already been an entire 12 months of games, exclusives, and some pretty crazy content. And today, I wanted to try and just celebrate the occasion and look back on this first year, because I have managed to play literally every PS5 exclusive. I like trying to pick up my controller and go on some pretty crazy adventures. So today we're going to try and look at the games that definitely just scratch that itch of next-gen gaming. But there is going to be some rules to this. My goal with this is games that are definitely PlayStation 5 exclusives to their core. Stuff that has new content, it actually uses these haptic triggers, things that are more than just basically a PlayStation 5 version of a game that already existed. So as much as I love Final Fantasy XIV, which is on PlayStation 5, that doesn't count. Or something like Hitman 3. Hitman 3 does have haptic triggers, but it exists on other consoles. This is what I've managed to track down. These 16 games are what I consider the 16 actual real exclusives we've gotten for this first year. And I'm going to be ranking them from S all the way down to D, from the best to the absolute worst. Because as much as I love a lot of these games, some of them are complete worthless trash. Alright, so with that being said, it's time to buckle up and get ready for the crazy ride that is going to be trying to rank this and not offend half of the internet. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please press that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, because we're getting really close to 210,000 subscribers, which would be nice to beat before the end of this year. Alright. So where do I begin? This is actually a pretty decent selection, and a lot of these are just so many different genres. Like, it's kind of nuts that you could have a platformer like Sac Boy right next to one of the hardest roguelites I've ever played in my life in Returnal, and then have that right next to a racing game or Godfall. Alright, let's start things off with the very beginning, which is definitely Astros Playroom. This was actually a game that was a launch title, but initially, on the surface, I noticed some people confused about Astros Playroom because it appears to be just a glorified tutorial. It's something that explains the hardware of the PlayStation 5 and things like the controller features, but what's funny is that the more you play Astros Playroom, the more you begin to appreciate the fact that it is, on its own, a game. It has time trials, it's got hidden stuff, it's got trophies and stuff, and honestly, it's surprisingly fun. But where does it go on this list? I'm going to give it an A, because I do like it. I'm glad it's free. It's cool that it's just packed into every PlayStation, and I do feel like it serves a very, very important purpose. It is a fun game to kind of teach you about the future of next gen. Now, I guess there's a lot of these I want to hit, but let's talk about another game that was also a launch exclusive, which came out the exact same day as Astro, which was Demon's Souls. I love ridiculously hard games. I love freaking From Software. I love getting ground into the pavement sometimes. But Demon's Souls, this remake, completely blew my mind. And part of that came down to definitely just the solid state drive. The fact that you could just instantly teleport around this gigantic cursed planet. Those moments where you die and get instantly reborn, or somebody invades your world and you have to fight them off. Like, this game has always been about chaotic energy, but I feel like it's best exemplified in this remake. And not to just be a completely shallow gamer here, but holy heck are the graphics absolutely glorious. It's so delicious to see like fire particles and people just spraying out blood and stuff. I can't help it. I gotta give it an absolute S. That game is tip of the tippy top. Now, I want to go through these games all just chronologically here, or how they're just listed out from left to right, so you can kind of see what's coming up. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about Kena Bridge of Spirits. I believe this is like the most recent of the exclusives that personally I've beaten, and Kena is such a great ride. It's quirky, it's cute, it's got this like almost Pixar aesthetic to the animations, to the crazy eye twitches and stuff. This game is a really, really interesting, unique treat, and I'm really glad specifically that it exists on PlayStation 5, because some of the features like feeling your bow staff bounce off of people, or having the triggers push you back when you're trying to just shoot your bow and stuff, those are those tiny details that definitely do increase the immersion of it. Now, some people are going to be a bit upset. There has been so much talk across the internet that this is the indie game of the year, or people acting like this may be just straight up game of the year material. It got a lot of 10 out of 10s, but I didn't give it a 10 out of 10. Where do I give it? Okay, so I'm a little bit conflicted here. Do I give it an A or do I give it a B? I'm going to give it an A. I just feel like when I initially reviewed it, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I think it deserves to go in the A category. That game is just so incredibly fun. It's so nice to get the unlockables and stuff. It is a really rare treat to have a game that feels so conducive to general gameplay, which sounds a bit too deep cut. Okay, let's talk about what is probably the second worst PlayStation 5 game I've ever experienced. Holy heck. Godfall. Look, oh god, do I give it a C or do I give it a D? I'm going to give it a D because the game is just complete freaking garbage. If you haven't played this, it's like a hack and slash game where you're like exploring around and trying to fight all this really cool environments and stuff. It has got to be one of the most gorgeous looking dumpster fires that has ever existed. Like, just visually, everything is incredibly stunning to look at. It's like just watching poetry in motion. Every single thing looks like an actual painting come to life. But it is so staggeringly boring just trying to play through these maps because it's just so short and a snooze fest. I'm still giving it the award as second worst because there is a game we're going to talk about here that is absolutely broken. All right, next up is Bugsnax. You know what? Bugsnax, I gotta give it a B. It's cute, it's quirky, it's Pokemon on PlayStation. But more than that, I do appreciate the fact that Bugsnax definitely seems to have more at least creature appeal to it. When you're playing Bugsnax, the whole idea is that there are these little snacks that are bugs, and eating them just transforms your body. So you can get things like eat a candy cane, congrats, you got candy cane thighs. It's such a simplistic concept, but I kind of appreciated the idea of trying to get like traps and puzzles, and it has more depth to it. It's still not my favorite game. I still wish, it wasn't quite so hyped up for how much of a tiny little experience it is, but I definitely appreciate the weirdness they were going for, because they nailed that. All right, Deathloop. Deathloop is wild, because technically I guess this is like a Microsoft game, right? It's made by Bethesda, who's now a freaking gigantic studio over at Microsoft. So, it's sort of like one of those weird things where like Xbox kind of made one of the highest budget PlayStation 5 games of the first year. But that aside, the game is really good. It's crisp, it's fun, it's got a really interesting time loop mechanic to it where every time you play the game, it's a singular day and you're trying to figure out the proper path to kill these 9 specific targets. And if you manage to take them all down, you escape this time loop. But every time you die, every time you make a mistake, or every time you find yourself just completely trapped, it ends up screwing over that day and you have to reset it. It's one of those ideas of a game that isn't the most unique on paper, but the execution of it, the way you actually play the game, is so fun that I feel like it kind of surpasses the sum of its parts. But where do I go? Do I give it a B? Do I give it an A? In my opinion, it is not an S. I know some people think this game is an S. I'm giving it a good ol' A. I like it. It's great. The PvP, actually ambushing people and screwing over their best day, is a very freaking toxic treat. I enjoy it. Spider-Man Miles Morales. All right, look, I'm a Spider-Man fanboy. I always have been. I've got tons of Spider-Man comics. I'm wearing a Spider-Man shirt. I customized my console to be Spider-Man. Of course, I'm giving this game a big ol' S. Miles Morales is such a wholesome good time. Actually watching Miles Morales try and figure out how to be his own version of Spider-Man, watching him gain the trust of New York, it's such a fun game. But more than that, it's one of those games that definitely utilizes the power of the PlayStation 5. Instantaneously fast traveling, zipping from one end of Manhattan Island to the other is so blisteringly fast. And it has some insane ray tracing that allows you to actually look at individual glints on your armor and see reflections of surfaces all the way across town. This is one of those games that I feel like when you're playing it, it's hard not to just stop and stare at surfaces and wonder, how did they even pull this off? I love this from a technical aspect and a gameplay aspect, and definitely the fact that I love the story so freaking much. If anything else, of all the games we're talking about today, when you get a PlayStation 5, get Miles Morales. You will not regret it. Okay, next up, Tormented Souls. Now, I feel like a lot of people talking about, like PlayStation 5 exclusives, they don't even consider this game. It's definitely a smaller project, but a lot of subscribers have told me it was good, and I decided to pick it up, and I ended up beating it in one long 10-hour sitting. This horror game essentially plays out like an indie version of something like Silent Hill, but it feels very fun at the same time. Like, the monsters are kind of stupid, everything's like a zombie with spike fists and stuff, but still, it was one of those games that I enjoyed just running around and being bad at. And the puzzles, they're very, very retro. I kind of appreciate a game that manages to walk in the footsteps of better games, but without stepping on any toes. I'm going to give it a C, but I want to say that this is a very loving C. This is a game that is not worth a B or an A, definitely not an S, but still it's a game that sets out to achieve a specific thing and definitely enjoys the journey to get there. Alright, so we're now halfway done with this list. We've got 8 left. It's time for a nice water break. I hope you guys are hydrated and enjoying your day. I am working on a big review of the PlayStation 5 in general. I've actually spent over $1,000 total on my PlayStation 5 and the accessories for it. That video is coming out in a couple days where I'm going to talk about basically, well, what I've done to make what I feel like is the best PlayStation 5 ever. But it's time to get back to the video itself. Alright, so next up we got to talk about Ratchet & Clank A Rift Apart. But I feel like this game, of all the rest, I feel like this game is incredibly unique for 2 separate reasons in the context of PlayStation exclusives. First and foremost, Sony marketed the heck out of this game, so I feel like it had a bunch of like hype and honestly pressure building on top of it. And more than that, I feel like it's one of those games that I feel like definitely can only exist on the PlayStation 5. The major gimmick, for lack of a better word, when it comes to Ratchet & Clank A Rift Apart is that there are these dimensional switches that let you just instantly go from one reality to the next. A planet where everything is destroyed to a planet where that's actually totally fine. You can just click like a remote control between different dimensions and see alternate timelines. And not only does this work exceptionally well as a gameplay mechanic, but the speed at things work. The fact that there is just no load times, no delays, no frame drops, being able to just click back and forth between dimensions is a staggering leap in technology. Even now, after having beaten this game twice, I'm still just completely shook as to how this works. It's still just one of those things where I feel like, all right, this is something that is the future, and holy heck am I glad I get to see it. I gotta give that a big ol' S. This game is incredibly fun, it is incredibly cool, and graphically, it's still nuts that you can get this game to run that well in 2021. Okay, so now, next up, oh gosh, I don't even want to talk about this one. Tribes of Midgar. I bought this because of the trailers and stuff. It looked almost like a Diablo-style game. It's a top-down adventure game. It's not particularly fun. It's very survival heavy, lots of crafting, and some people are going to love it. It's one of those games that I feel like for people who want a top-down survival game with lots of heavy crafting mechanics, you guys are going to have a field day with it, but personally, not for me. Do I give it a C? Do I give it a B? I guess I'll give it a B because I can recognize the quality, even if I don't like it. All right. Sac Boys Big Adventure. Alright, so I like the Little Big Planet games. Calling this one Sac Boy and focusing more on his specific platforming was probably the best choice. I still don't care for this game that much. It does feel very low budget. The mixing of new mechanics, new graphical styles, and of course just new features on the controller itself makes a lot of these other games feel like they're walking in the big shoes that they need to fill. But Sackboy, it just feels a bit more like they just wanted to make something and they were like, alright, that's good enough. I'm still going to give it a C though. I feel like it's a game that's decent, it's good, especially if you're playing it co-op, but it's not exactly going to make you go shaking in your boots. Alright, Returnal. Oh, yeah. All right. So Returnal is definitely the hardest game on this entire list. I definitely think it even blows Demon Souls out of the water. Again, another time looping masterpiece, but this one has a very heavy mystery at the heart of it. We're playing as this astronaut who crash lands on a planet that seems to make it where every single time she runs out of health, she wakes up back on the planet crashing once again. But the major twist to this that I feel like makes it go from a, B tier game to an A tier game is the fact that there is a freaking awesome roguelike element of this. Everything is randomized. The guns, the power-ups, you can get these things called parasites that attach to you and give you different random buffs and boons. I think this game is definitely the most addictive of all the PlayStation 5 exclusives thus far. You could play this for 30, 40, maybe even 50 hours and never get the same build twice. It is just so shuffled, like the ultimate deck of cards. And I find that to be incredibly thrilling, even if it did become frustrating at times. But where do I put it? Yeah, I definitely got to give this one a big ol' A. Dang. It definitely earns its slots as well. Alright, Death Stranding Director's Cut. This is one of those very divisive games. Some people love Death Stranding, some people completely hate Death Stranding. I think this game is definitely better as the Director's Cut. More vehicles, more options to transport materials, and more just chances to gawk at gigantic vistas. I'm going to give this one an A. It's still a good game, and it's definitely better on PlayStation 5 than it ever was in that original format we got. Alright. PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. Destruction All-Stars for the PlayStation 5. This is a racing game in a way. It is basically the crappiest clone of Twisted Metal that has ever existed. And what's shocking about this game is that it's already dead. A couple weeks ago, I was trying to record some gameplay of it. The servers are empty. This game is dead. If you try and play it online, like just randomly at like 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, you can't do anything except bot matches. How is there already a dead PlayStation 5 game? Like, that's insane to me, and it's a clear testament to how bad the game was at launch. I'm giving it a D, but to be perfectly honest, I wish I'd made a tier below this, because this deserves the fattest F. It does. Don't buy it. If you got it for free, don't even bother installing it, because it's dead's dunzo. Okay, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. Now this on the surface appeared to just be a re-release with like 60 frames a second, some haptic feedback stuff, and instantaneous load times. Those features on their own are definitely great because, it's just a great chance to play a game, and now without those ridiculous load times when you're trying to skip from one chapter to the next. But what makes this actually new and different is the newly added Yuffie episode, which allows you to play some completely new, totally new, fresh content to the Final Fantasy VII universe, actually running around in Midgar, just chilling, relaxing, stealing some materia. The details they've added to Intergrade are just so freaking great, but playing as Yuffie and getting a chance to see her uniquely invented combat style and stuff, it's good. It's incredibly good, and it really feel like it makes me actually excited for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, and it definitely gets my brain boiling about when the heck we're going to see Final Fantasy 16, because I can only assume that at some point, like, if they manage to make Intergrade this high quality, this top-notch, what else is Square Enix making for the PlayStation 5? That is what I want to see the most. I'm giving that one a tippity-top S. Alright, last game, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. Now, this game is actually a pretty beefy addition. Of course, they managed to do the standard sprucing up of making the game run at a solid 60 frames a second, make it have really smooth, crisp visuals and higher resolution, but what I've always liked the most is that Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, it takes you to this new place called Iki Island, which is easily the best piece of Ghost of Tsushima content. This is a new giant side quest that lasts a couple hours and gives you new collectibles, new abilities, new weapons, and new enemies to fight against. It feels like it teaches you everything you've already learned in Ghost of Tsushima, but even better. I'm still shocked. I'm still impressed. I'm still impressed with Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, and it's been months since I finished it. It's like, still, this version of the game is seriously just such an improvement that if you have not already played Ghost of Tsushima, wait until you get a PlayStation 5. I'm dead serious. This version of the game is such an improvement, you need to be playing this over the original game, which I already gave a 10 out of 10. So yep, that's right. I'm giving this a big ol' S. Alright, so these are clearly my thoughts of the goods and the bads of the first year. I think it's been decent. Like, the fact that we have so many games up here at the A and the S, I feel like that's a great testament to how much Sony is attempting to knock it out of the park. Xbox has been doing pretty decent as well, though. So what's coming up next is I'm actually going to be doing a specific deep dive on the PlayStation 5 Year 1, talking about the accessories, the equipment, the upgrades to the hardware you can do, and what I think of the console now, after having played it pretty much every day for the last year. And then separately, I want to do something about the Xbox Series X, because I do love my Series X, but I'm not sure exactly how to talk about that. But both those videos are going to be coming out here in the next couple days. Thank you so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a gigantic thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. You know, if they made the Cyberpunk PlayStation 5 version, maybe I could have put that on the list. Put it right there on the F. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, you know, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.